Hi, Jim Ziegler, the Alpha Dog, and I've got a very special broadcast for you today. This is the Dawg Pound. I'm so dramatic when I say that. I press the hell out of myself, but I need some music or something. Yeah, really do. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about, now brace yourself, it's coming on fast. Benstock's arrived. Okay, everybody's in the house. Hello, Brian.
How are you? Hey guys, good to see you.
Having a great day, just under the wire. Okay, so we're live. We're talking about the manufacturers, the vendors. Everybody is now capable of technologically transacting from A to Z. Carvana sparked it. Tesla has got them very nervous. And last week, I saw something in automotive news that got me a little stressed. Farley was talking about that EV, and we're entering the EV really fast. The age of EV is coming. And, everybody's saying 2030, 2035. I've got a record as the most accurate futurist in the industry. You go back 30 years and you look at the things that I have said and the things I have in writing, the speeches I made. I am the most accurate futurist in the industry. And I'm going to tell you right now, 2030, 2025, the entire industry will be electric. Nobody will be building internal combustion engines after 2025, maybe 2026. Just remember I said that. Our guest today from the Ziegler, Michigan, all points northwest, my friend Aaron Ziegler. Hello, Aaron.
Hey Jim, how you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing fantastically well. We got to do something about that misspelling of your name.
You just figured out you've been spelling your name wrong your whole life, huh?
Perhaps I have. Okay, and the BDC diva herself, the queen of BDC, Bobbie Herron. Hello, Bobbie. Bobbie, turn on your microphone.
Oh yeah, we don't have you.
I didn't say the queen of technology. I said the queen of BDC. Hello, Bobbie.
There you are. Yes.
Okay. And one of the most brilliant women in the car business. She's held every position from receptionist to general manager. My friend Jennifer Briggs from Next Level.
Hey Jim, how are you doing?
I'm having the best day. You hear I'm going to be on the big stage at Digital
I
Dealer.
I did. I heard you're keynoting at Digital Dealer. So excited.
Hey, how about that? First time I've been on the big stage since 2019 before I caught the cancer. Yeah.
I tell you what, people better not miss it. It's going to be exciting.
And the mad Russian himself broadcasting today from Spain. My friend, the king of reinsurance, Max Zanan. Hey, Max.
Hey, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Another one of my really good friends in the car business, general manager of Ferman Chevrolet Tampa, my friend Brad Wise. Hey, Brad.
Hi, Jim. Good to see you. Good to see you're doing so well. Pleasure to be on.
It's good to see you got your camera adjusted too. And another one, when we talk about futuristic thinkers, when we talk about people who are on the cutting edge of the cutting edge, Paragon Honda, Paragon Acura, biggest certified pre-owned Honda and Acura dealer in the world, maybe the universe, my friend Brian Benstock. Hello, Brian.
Jim, how are you? Good to see you and everybody else here with us this afternoon.
We're going to have a good broadcast today. I'm going to start out with Aaron because Aaron's right next to me on the screen. Aaron, the manufacturers are talking about transacting directly to the public because it's all for the good of the dealer. What do you think?
Well, I think they tried to do that 20 years ago, and it didn't work out so well. So, I think if they could figure out a way to cut dealers out, they would, but the dealers add too much value. The relationship that the dealer has with the customer can't be replicated by any piece of technology. Technology can certainly enhance our business, but it can't take the place of the dealer.
It can't. I've always said manufacturers do not know how to sell cars. Ford Motor Company tried it with the auto collections. General Motors tried it about the same time under the Ron Zarella era. You know, what a disaster. Absolute disaster. It was a fustercluck. I remember it well. You know, unbelievable. Bobbie, what's your opinion?
Oh man. Well, the thing I like about transactions online is the convenience that it gives the customer, and the applications that are used are easy. I don't disagree though that dealerships are important and that the relationship that people have is important. Where I think this is going and why it's causing such a problem is there's so many people that are fighting the ability for the customer to do it the way they want to online in the beginning that it's starting to become an enforcement. But there's room for both there, and hand in hand, you can deliver an outstanding experience for the customer and for the dealership by embracing the technology and still giving a strong level of customer service. I think after the sale is extremely important. I want a relationship with the place that I go so that when I have an issue or I have a question, I have somebody that I trust that I can call. And we know what that call center would look like with the OEM, right?
No, we've seen the OEM. I'm gonna dip down. Brad Wise, what's your thoughts?
Well, I really don't see the need for it other than the infatuation that they have with Tesla. I mean, dealerships are getting better. CSI scores are getting better.
The infatuation with Tesla. I love that.
Yeah.
The dealership cultures are getting better, not getting worse. So there really is no evidence for why they would even want to do this other than that reason. And the control, I mean, I already see the writing on the wall where, at least with General Motors that I represent, is this reservation ordering, this one price on the EVs coming down the road, these flats that they're paying to salespeople. They're talking about them ordering their cars for us because they know they have analytics that say it can do better than we can as human beings ordering cars, which might be true, actually, if you have 100% trust behind the product. But the thing about car dealerships, I don't think most people appreciate the philanthropic work in the communities that dealerships do for people, and then the complexity of a car deal. I mean, in a very affluent area, the manufacturer to consumer might have some merit, but the complex credit that we deal with, the upside down, the values of the trade, switching people to a different vehicle. I mean, it's all about emotion, and you eliminate all that emotion doing something that's a direct to consumer, because the manufacturers, they've never been near a dealership. They have no idea what it's like on a busy Saturday when people have expectations here, and a great salesperson is able to bring those expectations down through rapport and value building and creating excitement and a vision of getting a car today. I mean, if you eliminate that, first of all, you take all the fun out of the car business. And hopefully I'll be out of the business by the time that happens. Brian and I will be pulling up in our electric cars, stealing coffee and talking. But, I mean, if you take away negotiation, you take away commission, you take away all the competitiveness. I mean, for instance, Brian Benstock, it runs one of the greatest operations in the world, where there might be a Honda dealership 10 miles away. It's the worst operating dealership in the world. That's what makes this business great. We as leaders, we're it's like sports to us. The competitive nature of building your team, motivating your team, recruiting the best people, and constantly drilling and rehearsing. That's the whole fun of all of this, and it works. It works because the business that weak dealer won't get, the good dealer will get. So I guess the overlying thing is the complexity of this is a very undervalued thing in a car deal. It just doesn't. You just don't walk in and get what you want. There's lots of different lefts and rights that a good salesperson has to navigate. So I think, I know you don't agree, but I think the franchise laws are pretty ironclad. But you seem to think, well, you said there's some verbiage in that agreement when it comes to.
No. There are some loopholes in the franchise laws right now that. And,
Jim, there are no franchise laws or protections as it relates to EVs. What are you talking about? Tesla, I was saying this 6 years ago, they pierced the protective veil that we had with the franchise laws with electrification. And all the manufacturers are jumping through that, and Apple will jump through that same that same, I won't even call it a loophole. It's a workaround.
We talked about that last week, Brian.
Yeah, listen, we're going to have to change. The dealers have to work with the manufacturers and amend the franchise agreements so that they're equitable for both the manufacturer and for the dealership. If we're going to say, and we're going to hold
Wait a second, Brian, when has the manufacturer ever been equitable?
When it's in their best interest and when it's in their intelligent self-interest. Jim, I don't think for a second the OEMs have a clue of what's coming. They're scared witless. And so now's the time for us to say, hey, we'll work with you, you work with us. And that's going to mean the dealers have to be flexible also. The franchise rules and the laws are going to have to change to adapt to the times, because we're no longer competing with one another. We're competing with the likes of Apple, Tesla, Carvana, and everybody else that's coming down the pike. And they're not going to be lumbered and labored with these draconian franchise rules. They're going to be able to circumvent them completely and provide a better experience for our customer. So rather than saying to the manufacturers, well, we've got these franchise rules and regulations and you better not do this, I think we need to look for ways that we can provide a better experience for the customer and remain profitable at the same time. I do think there's always going to be a place for the dealership. I think the dealership of the future is going to be a temple to the brand, where customers come to really interact with the brand. And I know we have cars on the showroom floor, but they really don't allow for the interaction, right? Why not have simulators on the floor that are cool as hell, where a customer could go in that car and take its returns at 100 miles an hour safely, and introduce the metaverse to the showrooms and really create an incredible experience for the customer.
Did you see Brian Kramer's? Did you see Brian Kramer's post on the metaverse?
I have not. I like Brian, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I put a Photoshop of him wearing a tinfoil hat communicating with the aliens.
So he's got a direct line to Elon.
Jim, I wouldn't. That metaverse is going to be powerful. People are finding easier ways to transact, and I think dealers for the longest time have made it very difficult for people to transact. And I think Brad was talking about the philanthropic benefits of the dealers. Customers don't give a rat's tail.
Well, look at Herron Ziegler. I disagree with that now. I mean,
listen, Apple's been pretty philanthropic, and Tesla as well. And one of the ways that they're going to do that is they're going to be able to throw some of that $3 trillion that they've got into communities. I think they've got trade cycle management nailed cold. They've got manufacturing nailed cold, advertising nailed cold. I think they're going to be the real people to keep our eyes on. And I think so. If we're fighting with our manufacturers, we are going to get destroyed by the likes of Apple coming in. I think we need to find a way to unify. Honda and Toyota needs to unify.
I agree wholeheartedly, but the manufacturer's picking the fight.
And to be able to operate as a single unit, going up against.
And why are they picking the fight though?
These other guys.
Think about for a minute, like, why is the OEM picking a fight? And you think about it for a second, what's the hole that they're trying to fill is to prevent consumers from not being loyal to that particular brand and going to the other one due to experience, due to the things that they go through. And that's not to say that every dealer is like that. I mean, we say this a lot and people are like, oh, you think every dealer is terrible? Absolutely, I don't. But I think some of you are awful, right? And I think some of you are great. And that's just the truth of the matter. And if everybody was doing a good job, we probably wouldn't be having discussions like this.
Jennifer, jump in there.
Well, here's the one thing I want to know in this whole model is how are they going to handle their warranty work? Because I know we're talking about the experience and they can't handle the structuring of the deal. But what about afterwards? What about that? You know, the way I was brought up in the dealership was sells the first car, service sells all the rest. So how's that going to fit in this model? And I think what Brian is saying is correct, but also Brad, they can't do what we do, but you will catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So we really have got to step up and prepare for it because it's not going to slow down, especially when it comes to EV.
Before I open this up for a free for all, let me let Max jump in because he's got something contrary.
Oh, look at his face! He sure does.
Okay. Before we open it up for a free for all, Max.
I don't know Aaron well enough to know if he's quiet because he disagrees or agrees, but Max for sure.
So I agree with Brett. Right, they're salivating over Tesla. Right, and there's a fraction in every OEM right, that wants to be like Tesla. And there's another fraction of, let's call them old dogs, that understand that dealers are important, right? And at this very moment, the Tesla fraction or the Tesla wannabe fraction is winning. They're winning the narrative, right? But if you look at it from long distance, dealers don't see the forest for the trees, right? And Tesla saw their opportunity, and now OEMs see their opportunity. Dealers are not willing to transact, right? They're not willing to transact because I can't get the price on majority of dealers' websites. If I can't get the price, I cannot transact. If I have to unlock a manager's special, I cannot transact. If I have to fill out a form, I cannot transact. Right? So whether we like it or not, unless we all go to one price model and you determine the price.
How did I know you're going to say that?
It's MSRP, $10,000 over MSRP, whatever you can justify. Without one price, it's impossible to transact, and we're going to cede the market share of transacting to OEMs and Tesla.
I have a question, if I could, Jim.
Yeah, go ahead, jump in.
This is a serious question because I'd really like to know how it would work, but if they do have that kind of model, you know, at least in most markets, you have a lot of credit challenged people that are upside down. So how would that look when a customer is putting in their information and they're 7,000 upside down and they're a 550 score on that model? How would that work? How would that look?
Okay, so let me ask Aaron Ziegler.
Brad, that's
what about? Okay. Before Brian, Aaron Ziegler, you got a lot of credit challenges in the Chicago market. I know that for a fact. How are the manufacturers going to handle that?
Well, I don't think they can because it's the art of the deal, right? When you're putting together a credit file for a customer and trying to match up the right car with the right financial institution, that takes a person to be able to do that, and the manufacturers can't do that. If you look at these manufacturers, and they're all public companies, and the way that executives get paid with a public company is based off their stock price. Stock goes up, that's how they get paid. That's why they're all chasing the Tesla model, because Tesla has a $1 trillion stock valuation. They all want to be Tesla only because of the stock valuation. So that's why they're walking down this path and trying to copy what Tesla has done. That's what it all comes down to, is the money for the executives.
Brian Benstock, you're just chomping at the bit to jump in there.
I've heard this nonsense before, and no disrespect to my esteemed colleagues, but that they'll never figure out, and they can't, and they won't, and I don't agree with that at all. I mean, first of all, my OEM is a public company, and 95% of my paper goes through their finance division. Their finance division, the finance arm, is one of the most profitable arms of the corporation. So I think the OEMs are well equipped to be able to handle that. And especially if they're saving money on distribution, the money they're saving by not paying us, they certainly can use to dig down a little bit deeper and to buy credit. When we talk about other people getting into the EV game, the big concern for me is of course these guys, Apple. And I know people with good credit, and I know people with bad credit that all have iPhones. And I think that we underestimate the power of a $3 trillion corporation to be able to figure out simple things like getting a customer approved when they're flipped $7,000 or $8,000, and certainly they can sublet that out. So I think that thinking could hurt dealers. And remember, most dealers right now are in a profit coma. We're making money in multiples that we've never seen before, 3, 4, 5x the net profit of what we're used to. And I think we're not paying attention to, as Chip Perry calls it, the barbarians that are at the gate. And I've heard that there are over 200 EVs scheduled for production over the next 18 months. I don't know that the market, Jim, is there. When you say everything will be EV by 2025, you've been right before. I just don't know that the market's there. I don't know that the infrastructure is there, but certainly the demand is there. And I think it's partially being fueled by the OEM's desire to control the retail process.
You don't think they have the raw materials or the infrastructure to build the cars?
Well, no, the infrastructure to keep them on the road. I'm
right,
here in
the charging stations, all of that.
I'm in a city environment. Are we going to start passing out 500-yard extension cords for customers. That grid is not ready for it yet. The electric grids in various cities have to change. They said if everybody plugged in their car at night, the grid would melt down. So it's got to be crawl, walk, run with the technology. And I'm all for change. I think it's great. Have we taken a look at the environmental impact of having all these batteries that have a shelf life of a couple of thousand years? And what are we going to do with those batteries when they have to get put in the ground someplace? They can't just be put in the ground like scrap metal. They've got to be taken care of in a particular way. And of course, all the fuel savings that we're going to get and cleaning up the environment. Well, we lose a lot of that when we plug those cars into an electric plant that's connected to coal or nuclear or oil. So I think we need to think this through a little better. The OEMs also, I've seen some of the EV agreements, and those EV agreements are in absolute contradiction to our franchise agreements. So dealers need to take a real good look at those EV agreements and what they say. They're going to have us by the throat. And one question I have is, how do you roll this out across the country when the receptivity to the electric vehicles is different in different places? Right. I know that the West Coast in California, I think there's a high level of receptivity to EVs, but I'm not so sure in New York City it's the same. And certainly the infrastructure,
Iowa,
like a city like New York is
Indiana,
is So we used to try and produce cars that people wanted, and now we produce what we want and we stick it down their throats with incentives. And I'm not sure that that's the right approach.
I mean, as usual, Benstock, you have some great points going on there. I mean, I would challenge one thing here, and we know that I'm an advocate for EV vehicles, but I'm also an advocate for the vehicles we currently have on the road. But thinking about the battery situation, yes, that obviously could be a big problem, but EVs are more eco-friendly than their gas-burning counterparts. So I don't know what the weight of that looks like.
I would challenge you on that. If we take a look at a 20-year period, right, you're going to save on some fossil fuel, but you're going to be using different fossil fuel.
But that is with the current infrastructure, though. If we were, and I think that's what Brian's point is, in order to make it sustainable, for it to be nationwide and for internal combustion to go away, I mean, we would have to change much more infrastructurally instead of coal plants, wind, solar, and then there are other environmental.
You're not powering your electric car with a windmill. I'm sorry.
Listen, I have powered. Wait. I have powered.
He can do it. I'm telling you.
Listen, I have powered, but to be serious, I have powered an entire manufacturing facility with a wind turbine before. So not that every single house is going to have it, but from an overall infrastructure standpoint, we're not pulling up to a coal plant.
You heard it here first. Briggs' wind power cars.
Now, what does the environment look like with a million windmills everywhere? I mean, they're not exactly good looking. I've seen them in upstate New York. They're terrible eyesores there, and I guess they do some good.
Well, I don't think it's any worse than a coal plant, Brian. Let's be honest.
Brian, you want to do a partnership?
At the end of the day,
I'll let you get in early, my friend.
At the end of the day, customers will vote with their wallets, right? And the sky-high electricity prices that we're experiencing now make internal combustion engine and hybrid vehicles super attractive. If you get a Honda Civic, Brian, how many miles per gallon do you get on a Civic?
It's close to 40 miles per gallon. The crazy thing is, they said we were going to run out of oil by the year 2020. And sure enough, as technology's improved, you've got clean burning combustible engines that now get double and triple the gas mileage they used to get while delivering more power. It's an absolute miracle. And so they're able to squeeze more miles out of a gallon of gasoline than ever before. And that fuel, the exhaust has never been cleaner. If we were truly interested in cleaning up the environment, I think we would go with compressed natural gas vehicles. We have the world's largest supply of compressed natural gas. And, Honda had technology 15 years ago where the exhaust coming out of the exhaust of a CNG in Los Angeles was actually cleaner than the ambient air. In other words, if you were driving a Honda CNG vehicle and you're driving it through LA, you were cleaning the air. So why didn't we put our shoulders behind that? We're still taking
It
care
wasn't
of
politically advantageous.
we're still taking care of big oil. This is just a different way of doing it.
It's such a hot topic that we always go back to it. So I'm just curious, like, do we think that dealerships will go from being digital retailers to fully transactional online easier with EV or easier with what we're working with now? Or do we think there's a variance at all?
EV is going to be the convenient way of doing it, because if you want an EV, you can already do that with Tesla. So the manufacturers, I think, are going to get in line and
There's a
just
model.
follow that path. And we've seen now, is it Volvo, is you have to order the cars online. The dealers are basically distribution points, and they didn't ask the dealers if that's what they wanted. They did it. In Mercedes-Benz in Europe, they are now direct to consumer. And a friend of mine here in the States, who's a Mercedes dealer, said, well, the laws aren't as strict in Europe as they are here to protect the dealers. Well, again, electrification, I think, really changes a lot of that. So I'd be interested in looking at a different relationship with our OEM, provided they took our concerns into account. I think Jennifer's point about servicing vehicles is incredibly important. These are going to, the EVs, contrary to what we were told, require more maintenance and service than their counterparts, which I think is good news for us, especially in the first number of years that these cars are on the road. So I think there's a shining star there. But we really need to get together with the OEMs and figure a way forward with this new hybrid dealer agreement that will allow us to remain profitable and allow them to have the distribution points that they now enjoy.
Brad, Chevy Volt, how'd that work out for them?
Well, you already know the answer to that, but like anything, there's going to be bumps along the road. This is something new, and I just got a word today that they're going to start retailing those again. So General Motors has made a great investment in EVs. It's one of the first times that General Motors is at the forefront of something instead of being following someone else's success. So from that standpoint, I feel good about our franchise being a leader in that space.
Cadillac's already committed to 100% EV. That's true, isn't it?
Yes. And
just for the record, I was a Honda EV Plus dealer in 1996. We had an electric four-door sedan, looked very much like a CRV. It weighed about 9,000 pounds, and it didn't have a great range. But Honda has had the technology for a number of years, and Honda, I think, takes a very measured approach, understanding that the demand wasn't there yet on the customer side. And in fact, from what I understand, a number of the engineers at Tesla were originally engineers from Honda. So they've got the technology. Honda has it on the shelf, but they're waiting for, I think, the right move to wait for the consumer demand to be there. Nobody wants to see manufacturers have to heavily incentivize these EVs to get them on the road, because we know that's going to come from some other profitable center of the manufacturer.
There is no mandate for EVs or self-driving vehicles for that. Autonomous vehicles, the public isn't clamoring to be the Jetsons. I mean, that
first of all, the reason I
would love a flying car.
Like, that's all part of the fun. And I think I know that it's shifting with the newer generation, right? Where they're doing more ride sharing or even, whatever it might be, whether it is, just Zip cars or Uber. But I think that still is not even just an age specific thing. And especially to Brian's point earlier about where you live, like the ability to get in my car and be able to go wherever I need to go or call up a driver.
The acceptability in New York and the acceptability in California is not the acceptability in Iowa and Nebraska.
Exactly.
Well, then why is Uber doing so well?
Let me tell you, I'm glad you mentioned Uber. What does the average manufacturer make on a car today? And I'm going to guess, let's say it's $7,000. Imagine this deal. The manufacturer provides Uber and Lyft with an autonomous electric vehicle, and the vehicle, let's say, is $250,000. And they say to Uber, you can have them for free. Here they are, they're free. All you do is you pay us 50 cents a mile. You pay us 20 cents a mile. What's the most expensive part of the Uber? What's the driver? They've eliminated the driver, and if the manufacturers can get 50 cents a mile and that vehicle goes 200,000 miles, well, the manufacturer now, instead of getting $7,000, is getting $150,000. And they'd be able to, with that kind of revenue, say, and it includes the maintenance on the vehicle. And you'd have to go to one of the dealerships to maintain it. So, these autonomous cars, I think, will start out in fleets first. And the manufacturers would be smart to look at, it was like cell phones, right? They used to be so expensive until they said, hey, here's your cell phone. It's free. You just have to sign up with us for a year or for 2 years. And I think we'll see that business model take place with the autonomous car. So I don't necessarily want an autonomous car yet, but I do think there's going to be a market for it, for sure.
There's going to be a market for it. Now, let me point something out to us. EVs, when it's mandated, when the government finally says no more internal combustion engines, whatever that is, we're going to have to replace the entire fleet of cars that everybody in the world is driving. I mean, the manufacturers are thinking, "What? Holy shit! We've ran out of consumers. There's only so many licensed drivers now. Every one of them's got to buy another car.
It's going to be cash for clunkers all over again."
That was a nightmare. There's that fuster cluck again, and all of a sudden it starts to happen. And now the vendors are in on this. The vendors have been looking for total transaction for a long time. Everybody wants to turn the dealers into warehouses. Everybody, the vendors and the manufacturers would like nothing better than to see the dealers become warehouses and service centers.
Well, Jim, define the vendors, because as far as I know, CDK, imagine
I'm a vendor.
Well, imagine if we went we met Elon Musk in a bar, and could you imagine saying to Elon Musk, "Hey, who are you on, CDK or Reynolds?" Obviously, I laugh at you, and again, so there's a lot of disruption that's coming for everybody in this space. Don't think it's just the dealers. The ultimate, the hot setup is where your CRM, your DMS, your database, your equity mining tool are all one and the same, and nobody's cracked that code yet.
That'll be a terrible monopoly on your data and what can be done with it.
Or it's an incredible protection of your data, because right now you have all these different pieces plugging in and having and handling your customers' data. Hey, Apple's got a single database, right? Tesla's got a single database. Carvana's got a single source of truth in a single database, and we've got this fractionalized between a CRM, a DMS, and everybody else that sits on top of it.
The model definitely has
less advertising company. Like, I'm not comfortable with the fact that Auto Trader is hand in hand with Vin Solutions. And that's good. They can put me on their internal list for saying it, but it's the truth, because I don't know what skeletons live in that closet other than what I've seen or been aware of or been witness to. But I can tell you right now that CRM data, and you and I both know it, paired with all of those other opportunities, can blow you out of the water with the competition without even barely trying.
Oh, Bobbie, the Cox companies, and we got the NADA convention coming up in a couple of weeks. There is a whole Cox Boulevard at NADA convention. You go down Cox Boulevard and get this. There are 3 types of data. There's transactional data, there's financial data, and there's personally identifiable data. With all of the companies that Cox owns sharing information with each other, they have all 3. They have personally identifiable, transactional, and financial.
Jim, they still haven't figured it out. They don't play nice together. They
don't even talk to each
other.
And they own all. And I'm not implying that it's Cox Automotive that I'm saying. I'm just saying that that's where the danger can come in. Is a company similar to that goes in and monopolizes a market with all of that data is dangerous. It is so inexpensive to steal business from your competitor with barely any effort with the technology that's available, and all you need is a little bit of data to do it.
Herron was trying to get a word in here a second ago.
The problem with Cox is all their products are siloed and they don't connect with each other. They don't talk with each other.
Brian just said that.
Their own people fight with each other on different products, and they do not work together whatsoever.
Which did they miss an opportunity or?
They're missing a huge opportunity.
They were former competitors. Now we bought you, and it's supposed to be kumbaya.
Yeah, they're still fighting. HomeNet, Viato still fight. I mean, come on. I asked Sandy that 10 years ago, Bobbie? When are you guys just going to merge them together? But I actually think from a dealer perspective, that reduces the risk for your data security by having it in one location. What I think is an issue is that we don't look at it, and the point that Cox isn't even leveraging it. And I know I just went through a DMS conversion and I had to figure out, you mean the dealer track DMS updates my CRM slower than Reynolds and Reynolds? That's insane. But looking at the ability, I mean, Google is doing this, right? With their connected marketing, looking at that IP address and being able to connect the dots for your customers and consumers to meet them before, right? Whether it's before service, whether it's before purchasing, the idea of having all of your data connected is so you can leverage it to do better by your customer and therefore grow your business and profitability. Right. But I don't think anybody is scratching.
I don't think there's a trustworthy vendor out there. I don't think any vendor can be trusted. And when they come in and say scares the crap out of me when they say we're your partner.
I'm a partner and I'm a vendor.
Let me tell you, I am the original data warrior. I was Paul Revere riding down the streets of cyberspace yelling, "They're stealing your damn data." I mean, when I first took on TrueCar, when TrueCar first came out, does anybody remember? I paid $50,000 to get out of the prosecution when the Federal Trade Commission came after me, because I had 178,000 posts on the blog, and they claim I was boycotting TrueCar, which maybe I was.
Remember back to when the whole cars.com thing went down, and it was lots of things, but it was they send out an email campaign to a customer that promotes cars in other dealerships, right? And everybody went, oh my God. But now we have companies that own digital retail online tools, that own marketing companies and own your CRM. And I'm not saying who's shady and who's not, but I'm saying in the wrong hands. I'm not talking about your data being housed in some ransomware thing. I'm saying with that data, I can download your CRM list. I can download your website activity. I can go in and download your digital retailing. And then I can target those customers as your competitor for about pennies on the dollar for your competitor. And that is how easy it is to do. Now, would I ever do that? No, because that's shady. And that's what I'm saying. Don't give people that data. But that's the part that scares me about those companies having so much access to it. It is dangerous. And it is so easy. You paid all that money to bring in that traffic, and it can happen. There's companies out there right now that sell products that scrape your website and compare that data through Amazon listings and then resell it.
There's a lot of companies. It says in the terms and conditions of all of that. But I guess since we've gone off on a side tangent here from the OEM, don't you think these vendors? I mean, don't you think these vendors should maybe be fueling and funding the conversations? Because what happens to Cox if the OEM goes direct? How is that going to go? I think I know how many I have only got 30 rooftops that I'm managing, but I mean, the checks that we cut to them are significant, and we're just a small fish.
Well, I want to go back to core subject. One thing I've seen recently is the manufacturers are limiting production. Now that is part of the overall plot. I believe in plots. I love plots. I love all the intrigue.
I believe in choose your own adventure books.
Okay, one of the plots I see is Ford is now getting down to built to order. So we get built to order. We limit production. I've always thought a sea of inventory sold cars. I mean, cars on the ground sell cars. I still believe gorillas and balloons sell cars, but still, that
wavy guys.
yeah, the wavy guy. And that's where I come from. But I still think inventory sells cars. Now, Ford all of a sudden has limited the amount of inventory on the ground. They're going to have built to order cars. I think they're going to get their butt handed to them.
They're going to lose their ass because inventory search is dictated by inventory. No inventory, less search demand, and it's free. Search demand is free if you have the inventory. You post it online, and
I said that. Yes, you're right.
So they're not factoring that in. This is wonderful when you have a demand for 17 million cars and you only have a manufacturing capability of 13 or 14 million. You can do things like build to order. And if the manufacturer, no disrespect to the manufacturer, if they understood customer demand, we'd never have had the need for incentives. There'd never be an excess production of any car. So I don't think all of a sudden they're going to get it right. They like that build to order nonsense, but whatever happened to the customer being able to get served immediately when they want it? And I think that as soon as the manufacturers can get back to producing more vehicles, they will. And everyone says no, they like this, they're making more money. But as soon as the competitive OEMs start losing market share amongst one another,
it's all about market share, Brian.
They're going to ramp it up.
Wasn't it Bobbie who just came out with the whole thing against the dealers for the profits? Wasn't that just recently? Wasn't that Ford?
Excuse
It
me.
was Ford.
Yeah, it was Ford,
right?
Well, General Motors has had some pushback on that as well. Definitely focusing on the market adjustments on some units and really looking down on that. But Ford and General Motors both have been vocal.
Well, they should raise the MSRP, put bigger margins in there for the customers. I mean, for the dealer. And we're good with that.
Well, and they used to. I think that's the one point where we've been asleep at the wheel. That margin for us has been getting skinnier and skinnier, but no one is even screaming about it.
And that's the way to go. So the customers are not paying over MSRP. The manufacturer's suggested retail price has not been adjusted to reality. So if you're going to produce less, then you have to give more leg in that particular transaction to the dealers, because we're expected to cover the same or greater expense with less volume, and the only way to do that is to increase the margin. So they should take a good look at the MSRP, the delta that's provided between invoice and MSRP, and make an adjustment there. It would not have the net impact of charging consumers more money. In fact, in many cases, if you gave us a healthy profit margin at MSRP, I'd be apt to say, hey, that's a reasonable price for us to charge, and we could frown upon going over that as well.
Brian,
but do you think that's part of the plot, Jim?
48 years in the business. A 1976 Eldorado Brougham. A 1976 Eldorado Brougham was 25 feet long. I always joke you couldn't see the hood ornament in the fog. I mean, big ass car, luxury car. It was $13,000 MSRP, and the cost was $9,000.
Right.
Then a 1996 Eldorado Baritz, I think the last year they built them maybe, was a smaller car. It was a $52,000 car, and it had $2,500 markup.
Yeah.
So the manufacturers took the MSRP through the inflation didn't go up 300 and 400%. But the manufacturer's price did.
And the only way that we could offset that was to have very high volume outlets, and in fact,
addendums.
And the number of outlets, number of dealerships shrank, right? So I think taking another look at the margin that we have would be appropriate.
Was the Ziegler Corporations in business in those years, Aaron?
We've been around since 1975.
1975. So in 1975, I started in the business in 76. So that's, we're talking 48 years ago. Now, you've seen your entire life the margin shrink.
Jim, it was always interesting when Honda would announce a 1% increase in the price to consumers, and then we'd look at our invoice, and the invoice went up 3%. The invoice went up 3%.
No, not just. I was one of the soldiers against the Blue Oval certification program with Ford. When Ford said, we're going to take 1% of your invoice and put it into Blue Oval rewards. And Ford said, we're going to take money out of one pocket and put it in your other pocket. Aaron, how many times have you heard that speech?
Yeah. So all this comes down to simple economics. It's supply and demand. It doesn't matter if it's cars or boats or RVs or watches. It all comes down to supply and demand and what happens with prices. You look at right now, watches are selling for 30, 40% over what their MSRP is. Boats are doing that. RVs are doing that because the supply is not out there. If you go the other way, a few years ago when they were way overproducing, everything was distressed selling. You know, you had a lot more supply than you had demand, prices drop.
Watches are through the roof, but poor Brad Wise sitting over there waiting for a Submariner. You know, how long have you been on the list, Brian?
2 years.
Brad?
2 years on the list. I won't pay over list, so that's why I keep moving to the bottom of the list.
You can still buy Submariners. You can still get them.
Not from a authorized dealer. You can't.
What? Who said anything about that? As long as it's genuine, got papers.
Jim's got a guy, Brad. He's got.
You've got next, right? We've got people.
Something that fell off a truck.
But
Jim, not to get political, the news coming out of Washington is rather than accept blame for the inflation, they're charging retailers, and they're saying it's our greed that's causing inflation. And we've already seen a couple of articles referencing prices being sold, cars being sold over MSRP. I think that's really something we need to keep our eye on as that narrative, is being perpetuated.
Wait a minute, Brian, are you saying that somebody in Washington is saying because we're charging over MSRP that we are the cause of inflation? Is that I haven't heard that.
Yeah, that is
the
the narrative.
We're causing national inflation to car dealers.
Well, we're a key cause of it because used car prices, they said, were up 40 some odd percent, and new car prices up 30%. And they have no problem picking on car dealers when they're the cause of this. We were delivering 1,500 cars a month. Now we're receiving about 300 cars a month. And you tell me how we're able to generate the same dollars necessary to pay our taxes and our overhead on 300 cars versus 1,500 cars. It's just a math problem. The only way to do that would be to have a higher selling price right now. And certainly I prefer having inventory on the ground, just like you, Jim. Inventory sells cars, and if I have 1,500 cars on the ground, I know I'm going to sell 1,500 cars. And
now listen to what he just said. Inventory sells cars. We've got Aaron Ziegler, we got Brad Wise, we got Jim Ziegler, we got Brian Benstock. We got four of the highest retailers in the country. I mean, I could put any one of these four people in the dealership and totally blow the numbers up. So we know how to retail cars. You got four ultimate experts on this broadcast. Let me tell you.
Well, and what's interesting about that?
The big numbers.
What's interesting about that is all of them are digitally retailing correctly and using great technology and promoting it, every single one, because we've done the research to see. So there's a direct comparison between
inventory sells cars,
digital retailing to the experience that the customer has. There's a direct relation to the success of the store. Yes, you have to have the inventory, but you also have to have the experience.
Bobbie, one of the things that we're playing with is the ability to have the BDC handle a transaction using some of the A to Z technology, take the deal from cradle to grave, and then send it right to the customer without ever going to the store. And I think that really
I wonder what you were doing messing with Chip Perry.
Yeah, that's his. I always thought that A to Z stuff was Midwest feel good kind of a thing. But there's the devil's in the details, and the tech is really spectacular. And we've had some good results from people to single point of contact, take the deal cradle to grave, and the savings has given us a real nice delta in profit. And I think the next iteration of that is take that qualified person, man or woman, and have them now taking a lead, whether it be over the telephone or the internet, to be able to handle that transaction over Zoom call like this to the finance, finalize the paperwork, and then arrange for the car to be delivered to their home or office. And you know, when you think of the number of hands expense that you can cut out of that transaction, I think that's really exciting. So that's why all of a sudden I'm leaning heavily into what before I thought was a feel-good strategy. It happens to be a feel-good strategy that's effective. So, you know,
Well, it creates consistency and efficiency, because I've been training BDC or internet managers to desk deals for those departments for at least 8 years.
Yeah.
But it does still have the number of hands in it. And I think and I also configured the desking programs across all the stores for compliance purposes to make sure, as a larger group, that things are covered. And so I always joke, properly configured, a monkey could desk a deal, because I've got everything set up in the templates. But now we have these technologies that actually allow it to connect to actual bank.
Well, look at what we're doing here, right? And the ability to do an F&I transaction and have 100% of that recorded to give, you know, transparency to the customers. And more importantly, when you have a process where you can't go to step 2 unless you've completed step 1, you get that old 300% rule that a lot of people talk about but don't follow. 100% of the customers, 100% of the products, 100% of the time. And we're finding when you have a process that requires that you go through those steps, the outcome is better for the customer and it's better for the dealer.
You know, trying to run one of these broadcasts is like herding cats. You know?
It just goes off on what we're
I'm trying to stay on subject, and we go.
Well,
I think that's connected a little, because if you take it back to
connected.
the original topic,
Yeah.
Well,
So
how are
the
they
original
gonna
topic was, you know, of course, are the vendors and the manufacturers making a play on the dealers? That is the subject that we started out with, and as we wind down the last 6 or 7 minutes of this broadcast, that's where we're ending up.
The question hasn't changed in 50 years, and the answer hasn't changed either. Yes, of course they are. You know, I always said there's only 2 problems with the car business. Only 2 people that don't like us: the customers and the manufacturers. Other than that, we're in good shape. and you know, we fixed the customer part of it. We've done a pretty good job getting our relations with the customer okay. But I do think the manufacturers are chomping at the bit for an opportunity to not do away
Try
with
it. They're going to try it again.
great.
I have been Don Quixote jousting with these windmills for the last 50 years. I mean, here I am. I've been on, I can't tell you how many campaigns and I've been successful every time. I was a major influence on bringing down the Ford Auto collections back in 2000.
No, you weren't. They did themselves in, brother.
Oh, yeah, but I helped them.
You know, I mean, they touch that hot stove, and nothing teaches like a hot stove. You know, they realize that customers every now and then say no, and then what? And then
the customers say no. Max, you want to get into anything you want to say?
Listen,
one price. Okay, what else?
Right. I think Brian is right, and manufacturers are going to try and take market share away from dealers. But I think dealers usually don't have a unified front, right? Dealers, and I'm not looking to offend anybody, dealers are egomaniacs, right? And
I don't relate to egomaniacs.
Right. NADA doesn't do a good job representing the dealer body. And dealers, for some reason, probably because they are egomaniacs, cannot get together and be a unified front against this attack by OEMs or against the attacks on the franchise laws. I was at a franchise law seminar at Great New York Dealer Association. And Brian knows David Karp from Karp Volvo. He was there literally crying, saying that Volvo is now competing with him for the same customer after making him spend $5 million on showroom renovations. Right. And I think once dealers get united, a lot of these issues will go away.
I would take it, Max. I take it one step further. Dealers get united with the OEM. You know, I'm not for collective bargaining against the OEM. I think our interests should be aligned, and I think the OEM could do a better job with that, and I think the dealers can do a better job with that. You know, the Apple Store on 59th Street doesn't compete with the Apple Store Midtown. You know, they have the same price, the same processes, and you know, I do think that there will come a time when the Honda dealership should be all be aligned as dealers are. And the pricing and the processes and the procedures should be similar. And I know Big Bob over there with Big Bob's Honda says, no, I'm going to do it this way. Well, you know, Big Bob's going to have to go away because that's not for the good of the dealer body, the Honda dealer body. The challenge that the Federal Trade Commission is going to run into as the OEMs get involved in this, you really are going to have not price fixing, but you're going to have multiple places having to charge one price. And so if that's what's going to happen, we should embrace that and get out ahead of it and figure out what's a reasonable margin for dealers to get. Let's unify on that. What are the rules?
We're going to have to go to one price. I thought I'd never say that.
Yeah, no, well, we are.
Finally, Jim, you're coming around.
It's
let me turn Max's mic off.
I made a suggestion, Jim. I made a suggestion to Honda. You know, I said, let's just keep the margins that we have right now and set that as the parameters for one price. And everyone in the room at the time was pretty good with that, you know, because the margins are pretty healthy right now. One price doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. We've been selling used cars at one price now for Paragon for better than 12 years, 13, 14 years now. And it's not hurt us one bit. You know, the transparency, I think, leads to high sales volume.
Let me ask Aaron Ziegler a question. Aaron, are you A to Z? I know a lot of dealers in your markets are A to Z with the salesperson handles the entire transaction, or are you still desking from the desk?
So we're still the more traditional, Jim, where we're still desking from the desk. Although in today's world, because it's so competitive with the internet, you're almost one price on everything anyways, whether you advertise that you are or not.
Well, and our market is like that. We're in Michigan, so some of your market is like that.
Correct.
But that's a huge part. We have our hands tied a lot with our employee pricing. That's a pretty significant part of our market, and that is one price.
Well, Aaron's got stores in Michigan too.
That's what I mean. Yeah, the Detroit market is fierce about that.
Well, Aaron, I know Walzer and some of the dealers in your market are A to Z. They're doing the entire transaction with the salespeople. I'd like to do another show on that one of these days. Chip Perry hired me here about 6 months ago to consult the A to Z company on finance, because that was their weakest point, as I perceived it, was their finance. And Chip Perry and Brian Ellie and one of their other executives flew to Atlanta and spent a day with me, and we totally revamped their finance. So as we wind down the last couple minutes, I'll go back to, let's start with Aaron. Aaron, what would you say to wrap up this broadcast? What have we not talked about?
Yeah, I think it goes back to your original question on the manufacturer.
I almost forgot what it was.
Take out the dealers. And I think the dealers add a lot of value. And the technology can be used to enhance the customer experience, but you can't replace the dealers 100% with technology. You can't take it national. You look at the problems that a company like Carvana's having right now. They can't even get their titling issues straightened out. And they're getting shut down where they can't do business in states like North Carolina. And a lot of the state AGs are going after them right now. And something as simple as that the dealers, for the most part, figured that out a long time ago. So
they just put out a thing that said they want to partner with the dealers now, which is scaring me to.
They want the dealers to put your inventory on their website, and they take no profit just to try to pump up their numbers. But they're losing about $4 million per dealer.
Because more VIN numbers get more consumers.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a whole show. That's the virus-host relationship. That's what Car Gurus did, right? We'll give us first and then they control search. And it reminds me of what happened with Jeffrey the giraffe at Toys R Us. And they said, hey, I got this great idea. Why don't we list all of our toys on Amazon? And that was a great idea until Amazon got all the data of what toys had the biggest margin, the biggest draw, and they no longer needed Jeffrey the giraffe. Jeffrey the Bezos knocked the heck out of and the stuffing out of Jeffrey the giraffe, and they went out of business. And it's the same thing.
That is why I watched it.
Let me wrap this. We got about 3 minutes left. Brad Wise, what has not been talked about?
I just want to circle around, just say the car dealers are some of the most resourceful people I know. And in 33 years, I've seen it, not all, but I've seen a lot, and all of us have. And we're just very resourceful, and we're very creative in the way that we overcome hurdles and those kinds of things. And the things coming down the road, we'll do great with them. And I agree that we should have a good relationship with the manufacturer. But the part about selling direct to consumer, I mean, this is the only industry still around, I think, where a C student working at Chick-fil-A making $15 an hour can get, with a great personality, can go on the showroom floor and with hard work make $100,000 in its first year, get promoted to a manager and F&I manager or GSM and make $500,000 or more. And cutting all that out is going to be over. I mean, if that model were ever to take hold, but if that's what's best for the consumer, and these companies that do direct electric vehicles do direct to consumer, and that could put us out as a business too. So
2025, I'm sticking with it. Okay, the last 1 minute, I'm going to give it to Brian Benstock. 1 minute, Brian.
Well, I don't need a minute. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to participate in the conversation. I think that there's, of course, a great pathway forward for this great industry of ours. We are the most resilient entrepreneurs in the country. And what's good for the automobile business is good for the United States of America. I do believe that having a better working relationship, albeit a different working relationship with the OEM in the future, is in everyone's best interest. And I look forward to having my hat in the ring for those conversations with our respective OEMs. I don't believe in fighting them. I don't believe in suing the OEM. I don't think that's how we're going to come to a good solution. I think we have to understand as dealers that the OEMs are scrambling for answers as well, and they're trying to survive. And I think if we work together on a solution, that there's certainly a place for us in this ecosystem, and we can't do much without the manufacturer. So I think there's enough room for all of us here to better serve our customers. We're the natural people to distribute and service the vehicles for customers, however, whenever, wherever they want to consume them.
Thank you. Okay, as we get down to the last 2 minutes over, okay, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. The Dawg Pound every Tuesday, same place, same channel. If you're watching a replay, please post your. We still want to see from you. I want to thank our guest panel today. Everybody wave goodbye to the audience.